Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hey. So, yeah, I'm very, very happy to be here. I mean, this was kind of like last minute thing, but very, very happy because I really like Prisma. So for me, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invites. And yes, and thank you for all of you for coming here today. So I'm here to talk about Module-Federation. I know that some of you might already watch this talk because I gave this talk a couple weeks ago at the React Berlin Meetup. But can I just ask right now how many of you actually know about Module-Federation? So I have a couple of hands. That's pretty cool. So we're going to have advanced stuff to talk here. Like we're going to have basic stuff to talk here as well. I'm going to start trying to introduce myself. I always like to start with my why. Why do I do what I do? So don't worry, like the video is frozen, but it's fine. It's OK. So yeah, I do believe that it's possible to change the world through technology, right? And this is very important for me. So much so they actually guide all my decisions. So I was part of the Google developer groups in Brazil. I'm from Brazil. I give many classes in like code schools like Full Cycle, and I have trying to create my own thing where I share as much knowledge as I can for free. And just to give you perspective, right? Sometimes I try to tell people where I come from. When people think about Brazil, they always think about like Rio, São Paulo. I come from a totally different area, totally different. So first of all, the main city that's close to me is called Fortaleza, which is very, very close to the edge. And yeah, here you see like it's in the edge of Brazil. Over there is Fortaleza. I used to study there, but I never lived there too much. I actually from the countryside, where there's absolutely nothing but trees and some animals, and you know, it's so far away. It's so far away that I didn't have internet connection there until last year. And I was reading actually the other day about NASA sending like information from Mars to Earth. So I literally concluded that I used to live right here, right? Like this is the solar system, and I was completely out of it. I have no idea how the heck I end up in technology, right? Because I also didn't have a computer until I went to university. But I'm so happy that I was able to learn this, and I'm very happy to share. So maybe your life can change as well. Maybe you can inspire more people, right? So this is my why. So my name is Vitor Alencar. I'm from Brazil. I work for a company here called TaxFix. I don't know if you heard about them. Like it's pretty nice. I like it's a nice company. And over there I'm a tech lead. So as you know, I'm here already to talk about Module-Federation. But before that, I know I'm very, very happy. Like from the past year, I think a lot of bad and good things happened. And this is actually my first official year as a content creator, and I was able to do a lot of things. I have like videos in Portuguese, and now I'm like transition a little bit to also have more videos in English so I can share with more people. Those are a little bit of the stats. This is actually my second talk in English, so if I get a little bit nervous, I'm very sorry, okay? So pardon me. Thank you. So. Also, if you want to follow me, take pictures or whatever, I will be very happy to share with you as well. You can just find me everywhere as Vitor M. Alencar. I have the same handle everywhere. I'm very happy about it. So yeah, let's talk about Module-Federations by taking a step back and talking about micro-frontends. So I think most of you must have heard about micro-frontends. It's a topic that's quite popular nowadays, I think, because we are going back and forth from the decisions that we made in the past about like moving code to the server, moving code to the client, dividing code, scaling teams, and so on and so forth. So micro-frontends are this kind of like approach to create frontends that can be independent. You can have teams working directly to it, and they work in parallel. They don't bump into each other, right? So it's like a lot of companies nowadays, they use micro-frontends in one way or the other. We have Google, Microsoft, Airbnb. Maybe you in the future, if this talks convince you that this is a great thing to do. And those ideas that are not completely new. We had this happening in the backend not long ago, that we have monoliths, and then we migrate to microservices. And you can think this is a similar approach, right? It's not the same thing. It's not one-to-one. I'm going to share some examples that are some kind of controversial sometimes. But yeah, it's in essence, it's like breaking a big application into smaller chunks that you can understand better, right? So micro-frontends are similar, right? The goal is that you can be able to have different teams working in different features and different set of features, actually. And you can also have independent deploys that you don't depend on each other. And you can work in a small application set, and you have a better domain separation, right? I think this is the golden rule. Everyone would like to work in a place like that. In reality, things is a little bit difficult. So if I would teach you anything from this talk, is that I do believe that micro-frontends is about scaling teams, right? Don't think as about scaling technology. That's not 100% true. I think most of people, they have one application with, I don't know, like 10 files or so, and they think, okay, I'm gonna create a micro-frontend out of it. I'm gonna put like my 2 developers to work in those 10 different repositories because we're gonna be self-contained, it's gonna be amazing, it's gonna scale easily. And that's not the point. It's actually the reverse when you have a lot of people and you have to figure out how to be performant and not lose time in builds and trying to, have those PRs that introduce breaking changes and so on and so on. So sharing code is very, very hard. I'm pretty sure that in one way or the other, you might have faced this and you got to the same conclusion, right? It's not an easy thing. And the options that we have today, they are not, let's say, not there yet. There is so much that we can do to make them better, right? So if I would just quick show you a little bit of what we usually do on a daily basis. This is my application, right? Just for demo purpose. I have a shell, which is just my main application, and I want to introduce a new one as a checkout. The thing is, I want to be able to share my header and my footer with my checkout page, right? I don't want to copy this. I don't want to, have code duplicated anywhere, but they are different applications, right? So what do we usually do? First of all, we go very smart and we create an NPM library, right? That's amazing. That solves the problem in the short term. But the thing is, you update the header, and then you don't tell to the checkout team, right? And you say, okay, I'm the host. It's on my domain. I'm going to change this, maybe change some types, break some stuff, and you bump the version. Now, the checkout team also needs to go there, bump the version, fix all the mistakes, make sure that everyone's on the same page. And this can, in scale, like imagine companies with hundreds of applications running. This gets a little bit confusing. Then we get even clever, I guess. And what we try to do is say, okay, I have applications, but I'm just going to deploy to a static bucket, an S3 bucket, for example. And all my components will live there. And then I create those artifacts, and I create my loader as a shim to just get my components to both applications, right? I mean, this can be like a good approach, but the problem is you end up like creating a custom solution that's going to work for some time. It's going to break very easily. At some point, you're going to have to maintain another project. It's good, but it's not ideal, right? So there is another option, though. So this is what this would look like with Module-Federation. Basically, we have the host application, where the host application can vendor components that can be consumed by other applications. So here, it's that simple. Like we have just a consumer and a host, basically, right? And again, just to summarize why we are going that direction, just imagine, right? Like, for example, where I work, we have huge builds. We have mobile applications, for example, that take so much time to make all the tests pass and get everything ready. So NPM vendoring can be slow every time that we have to do an update. It grows into complexity very easily. And yeah, custom-made tools, they get outdated fast. And usually we are just sharing like primitives. And I think that we can do better, right? This is what we are aiming for, is that we want to have performance and we want to have a nice build time as much as we want to have stuff that's easy to share. But it turns out that we can have this, right? And this is one of the points of Module-Federation. So Module-Federation, it's a Webpack plugin. It's free. It's there today, right? I know that we heard about Vite. It's also super nice. But the goal here is to enable you to tell to the application that you can share code at runtime, right? So it's a different approach for a different problem. So instead of like doing everything on the build time, that you have to create your components, you have to put them into pipelines and so on, you can actually share your code at runtime with other applications, right? So not only that, you can actually share much more with Module Federation. It's not restricted to any framework. It's framework agnostic. You can share functions, you can share data, you can share configuration, you can share whatever. And everything here, again, I'm going to say it one more time, is over the wire. So it's in runtime. And I think this is the big selling point for it. If you really, really need something to be there as fast as possible, right? So it gives you this flexibility. So just for us to go through the terminology before I show some examples, usually when we are talking about federation modules, we have a host application. So this is the place that Webpack we're going to use to initialize everything during the load. So once your application runs, Webpack will try to figure out all the dependencies and everything that needs in order to communicate with other host applications or other remote applications. So we also have, as I mentioned, the remote application, usually the application that's just sharing code. So it can live on its own, and we're going to have some examples as well. But I usually just vendor parts of my application to someone else. So just imagine that, for example, I can have a checkout page, and I can create this as a remote, and all the applications can just consume this at runtime. So again, just quick summary. It's like with Module Federation, we can share components, modules, function data. We can deploy independent applications. We can share code over the wire and runtime. And we can have very cool things. I think those are very, very cool features. Like we can have redundancy, and we can have self-healing powers. And I'm going to show some examples. So I think we already covered this here, so I'm not going to just go there. So I'm going to also attempt to do some live coding. I got a little bit worried, I'm not going to lie, because I saw like a small application with like 2 servers running. Something went wrong, and I have like 6 servers running right now. I'm pretty sure that something will might break along the way. So sorry, I will do my best, right? But bear with me, and I'm gonna show you what I'm trying to do. So just imagine that we figure out the new startups that we want to build right now. It's some kind of like tax bugs, right? So TaxFix did well in taxes, but everyone drinks coffee nowadays, and this is a bigger market. And it's a very, very small application right now, but just imagine like millions of users, and we grow to a point that we have 500 developers just working this nice page, right? Just imagine, right? I know that that's not that hard. So imagine that we have now a specialized team to deal with shopping cart, and they have different needs. Right? They need to tell the user like, okay, this button here might not look attractive enough. It might not be that big. It might be like something else. Maybe I want to show in a different way. Maybe I want to have different listing. And over there, in the summary part, we have the payment team, which is responsible for like different payment methods. They don't care about the buttons at all. They might just care about like calculating stuff right. How do we do that? Okay, so this is the application running, right? So here, as you can see, we have this application that just lives in one place. And with Module Federation, what we can do, so I create some micro-frontends here. By the way, can you read this? It's readable for everyone? Yeah. Cool. And here on the host application, right, I have some setup that I want to show you. So let's go through the 101, how to introduce my Module Federation to your application. Basically, you install the plugin. So we have the Module Federation plugin, and you have 2 things to define here in your configuration is the remote entry. So here we have the host application that's gonna work as a host, as the name implies. We have a list of remotes that are gonna explain a little bit what they do. But basically, they are remote applications that I'm querying in runtime that I'm saying I depend on them, right? And I can also expose, and I can have shared dependencies. So I know that some like versions of React, they don't play nice with each other, right? I think from 18 up, they might be good to have like different versions of React on the same page, but you can also share as a singleton. So this means that it's gonna try to use always the latest version with the minor change. So like the most stable version possible. Same for React DOM, and we have it here. So my page now, what I'm gonna do, just gonna show, we have a very, very simple Yeah, perfect. This is my whole application. It's millions and millions here. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get, like, I have the components here, and I actually going to remove them, and I'm going to get them remotely. So here, I'm importing like another import, right? Two components, like the product list and the checkout, and now I'm going to just replace what I have, right? So I have remote product list, and I have remote checkout. Right. And now I'm going to go back to my application. I don't know if you notice, like there is some small differences here, but just to make sure that you trust me, right? What I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to open my console, and I'm going to try to show you what is actually coming here over the wire. So if I refresh my page, and I'm going to show here all the requests, we have some JavaScript code coming over the wire, right? So I'm going to make this a little bigger, right? And we have vendors, and we have remote entries. If I open here, this is the code that I'm loading from different applications. So actually, both components now, they are coming from a totally different application that's running here. I can show it to you. So this is my product list. It lives on its own, right? I can do changes here. I can have a team just focus on this one. It's using this set of features. So I'm using Tailwind. I'm using React. Why not? And I have my checkout team here that could be used in different technologies, because this is not framework agnostic at all. So if you want to mix and match versions, you can have maybe also Svelte, Solid, Vue, whatever you want. They play nice with each other. So you can also have multiple frameworks here. And now I'm loading them on runtime. And this is pretty cool, right? Because this allows me to, let's say, okay, I think this button could be a little bit bigger. So if I go there, and from my other application, remember, like this is completely different. If I change the CSS here, let's say to 50, because why not? I'm going to have super big borders. But this is in runtime, right? So let's imagine Black Friday, I made a mistake in the button. I want to fix this as fast as possible because my application needs to be up 9.9.9.9. Now I can easily fix a mistake in production, right? Because I have all these capabilities in runtime. Cool. So going back to the slides, we can actually have like independent deploys. Now we can have fast updates. We can have better control because we can actually, you can create a dashboard, for example, and control those things remotely, right? As you just see, they are coming in runtime. So if you want to, for example, vendor different versions of React, try different buttons and so on, why not? The sky is the limit, okay? Let's say, again, this is something that it happened with me. Let me see here, yeah. So do you know what Squircle is? Some of you? No? Okay, so it's very popular now that we are tired of circles, we are tired of squares. Now we have something that's not a square, it's not a circle, right? So designers love that. Everything is kind of like rounded shape, but not that much. So this is a Squircle. This is actually a geometric form that exists. And how you declare the area of it, it's bizarre. The calculation is crazy, right? So just imagine, I don't know if I'm going to have here, but yeah. I did a little bit digging, and at TextFix, we have more than 10,000 components in different applications, and so it's super big. And we didn't grow up with a design system library, right? I think a lot of companies, they adopt one at some point, but it's always hard to share code. Imagine doing this, and then the design, yeah, everything it's going to be different. My colors are different. Like this, it's where the money is. So this is usually the developers that say, yeah, it's okay. I'm going to spend like 3 days like putting border radios everywhere because that's super nice. But as I mentioned, I think Module-Federation enables us to do something in a different way. So for example, we can have a design system library. There is a micro-frontend running and changing stuff in runtime, right? So you kind of saw what I did over there. That I changed this button. So this goes for everything, right? So I didn't show here, but now I'm going to reveal that this is also a micro frontend. So this is my DSL. This has nothing to do with the checkout and the product list. it is just a dependency of them too. So I'm just exposing this to the other remotes. So if I go to the product list here, as you see, we are consuming like also some stuff. And here on my component, I have like, I can lazy import this as I would with like a local dependency as well. And I'm getting this button from a different micro frontend. As soon as I change, everyone reacts to it, everyone changes. So like to adopt new designs, it can be easy, it can be painless. Of course, it requires a lot of control. So it's give you the flexibility, but with great powers come great responsibility. Don't forget about it. Okay, right. You probably are wondering if things go wrong. Imagine that one of them just, I put my instance on Amazon and now it's down for some reason. There was a tornado or whatever. And how you do error handling with this kind of stuff, because this is happening in runtime, how you prevent this. So you can have just error boundaries for React, for example. And this should catch the error, and you can put a fallback, for example. You can put a component that's just going to display what's going on. You might wonder if there is TypeScript support, because we're here for that, right? So there is initial TypeScript support. I have to be clear. This is a little bit on the experimental side. I didn't push this to production yet, so I'm not going to be comfortable saying that yet. Just go for it. But it's very fun to play with it. So we can actually infer types. There is another plugin that's Module-Federation TypeScript. And what it does, it just push all the type definitions for Webpack. So Webpack and runtime can try to infer types of your components, right? This was the slide I was looking for error boundaries. So here you can see that you can catch, and I actually have a very cool example coming up pretty soon that's going to show the capabilities of this kind of like flexibility, and that you can catch also this type of errors in runtime. And yeah, also to share state, it's another big problem. You can use whatever you want, basically, as long as you be reactive. So if you want to use Zustand, go for it. If you nanostars, they also work. Redux works. RxJS, context, you can use whatever, right? It's pretty cool. And just to show that, I also have an example. I'm not going to try to show code because it's hard. But this is an application that I did where actually everything that's yellow, it's native JavaScript. Everything that's blue is React. Everything that's red, it's Svelte. And they all are updating the same store. So you just send a change here, it's going to sync. And my store itself, it's a micro frontend. So everyone that wants to change something would updates my micro frontend, and everyone that depends on it reacts to it at the same time. So there is some cases of bidirectional sharing as well that I think it's pretty cool, and like replication layers. So here is an example of like I can have an app shell. And sorry, this is in Portuguese. I didn't have time to translate. But I got to explain what it does. So here is an app shell that just get the shell. It doesn't have the product list or the product details. So it's vendoring all the shell. And every other micro frontend, it's consuming something, but also like acting as a micro frontend itself, as a host itself. So everyone in the end, it's running, those are same application running in different ports or in different servers, being deployed to different places. They all look like the same, so you can have replication layers, which is pretty cool if you have large systems, because the idea is that you can just build everything here and deploy to S3 bucket and vendor this over there and just create different versions of it. So this is one of the things that I really, really like. It's the self-healing capabilities of it. Since that all the code gets figured out at runtime, you have different approaches here to load your dependencies as well, because your dependencies are part of the graph that the Webpack will look for it, right? So let me try to show you something here. And yeah, I have a lot of tabs. I'm going to try to stop them all. Right, so here I'm going to try to run another server.
Could you zoom in a bit?
Yes, I'm just putting start, but of course, it's just yarn start. Don't look this term. It's like so. Okay, this is a micro frontend with a beautiful button. right? And just imagine that this page here, let me just turn this off. It's going to try to get data from it, right? And there's two good things to show here. Just imagine that's your most important page, the page that's going to open your business to everyone else. I just hard-coded here that if I click 5 times in this button, I'm going to throw an error, right? And I have an error boundary here. So what it does is, you see that the button changed. What I'm doing this one here, it's actually, I create a hook that's going to try to look for the most stable version of my component. So if the latest one that I got fails, I just go back to the previous one, right? And this is happening in runtime. You can see it here that it's going to load first time that I get the dependencies. It's loading all the vendors and everything else. And it's just defaulting to it on runtime. So in runtime, I get a new very, very minor request here, and I get the part of the remote entry that I need for it. This is super flexible. You can just configure it to do whatever you want. But not only that, this project is pretty cool because this page here doesn't know about styled components. And this button, this micro-frontend, it's on style components. So what it does, it's actually, since here we have like encapsulation, I can just say that, yeah, I have this dependency. And if by any chance your host application doesn't declare that you need this dependency, like this one, so let me just open yet another one here. I can just do like this. Oh. What Webpack is going to try to do, it's going to try to just read, to ask all the other remotes that are in your application, right? So here, as you see, I have my DSL, my design system library, and I'm sharing styling components, right? And I'm just exposing those buttons here. And on my host application, if I go to the Webpack config, I don't have any mention to style components. I don't even know they exist. But I have a remote that's a DSL. So again, one of the capabilities that we have right now is that I can, in runtime, just ask all the remotes that my application depends on it if they have this dependency. Just imagine this like moving legacy application, right? If you forget to push Lodash, jQuery, whatever, it can be that one of your remotes have this vendor and you can just get from it. This also works for React versions, Vue versions and whatever. So it is pretty cool. So I already showed, I did backwards, so I already showed you how this looks like, right? And yeah, and I also kind of showed the dynamic federation, but I didn't explain what it was. So this is the latest step, I think. Until here, you have this dependency on Webpack, right? But sometimes you don't know where your application might come from, right? You don't want to have Webpack, and you can actually interact with a more native API. So here, in this other example, actually my host application doesn't even need to have this Webpack here. As I already showed, we have a hook that I can use, right? I still need Webpack under the hood, but I can just load dynamic scripts on the fly. And this is what I did with this little button. I just put it here, where the button is coming from. And if this button doesn't exist, I'm just putting some components here to tell me, hey, I failed to load. I didn't know how to solve that. But basically, this can be attributed to any function. So what we can actually have that's pretty cool, imagine just creating a dashboard that you have all the dependencies, all your remotes, and all your host applications. And with a click of the button, you can change the version of React. You can change the button version that you're using. And you can test new stuff. You can do A/B tests. You can do anything that you want at runtime. And if something breaks, you can fall back very easily. So yeah, there is a lot more. But I don't want to, just spend a lot of time here promoting Module-Federation alone. So I have a couple of stickers that I brought with me. I don't know if you know Dracula. It's anyways uses Dracula. So it's from a friend of mine actually in Brazil. It's Zeno Rocha. So he sent me a pack on the initial ones to share with anyone that asks questions or want to talk with me afterwards. So yeah, I hope that you like it. I have a lot of stuff coming up in English as well. So if you follow me, you're probably going to see me talking there. And yeah, thank you a lot.
I open want to take questions?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, if I don't know how to answer, I'm going to be honest as well.
All good. Seems like everything is crystal clear.
All right.
Oh.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, about the concept itself, right? So, I'm wondering if module federations is a Webpack only thing, or if it relies on kind of collaboration with the framework that stuff is being injected in, for example. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like module federation is not Webpack only. I think they kind of like, they allow you to have, for example, they have partial support to rollup if you want to. I think they are trying to work with other like module bundlers as well. And about the concept, I think you're not, if you want to also have different frameworks, you can. It's not like, it's nothing specific here. It's anything that can run JavaScript. So any JavaScript environment would work. So Node, whatever. And I had examples also like sharing that, adding new frameworks like Solid and just make them work with React. So you have a lot of flexibility. There is, of course, some steps to it if you want to have, for example, like different versions of React might not play nice with each other, and sometimes you need to be explicit what you want to load in your final application. But you have the options, and they are there, and I think that this is the nice part.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Who's first here?
Thanks for your talk, first off.
Thank you.
You mentioned the design system in the middle of your talk, I think.
Yes.
And I just wanted to ask if I understood you correctly about this. Like you said, you basically can host your design system or like ready components like buttons, like basic stuff, right?
Sure.
At least basically as an app.
Yeah.
And then you can use them as a federated module like that.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm doing, right? In the like.
Yeah, I just wanted to like.
For example, this is just one button, but imagine having a whole design system library here.
So you're basically just hosting the button right there,
Yeah.
and you can just use it dynamically from any other page.
Yeah, and
that's quite interesting. I don't know. I never thought of doing this, but yeah.
Sure. I mean, it is like it comes with a specific need, right? So sometimes we want to be very careful on the way that we push things in and out, but there is nothing there that you cannot use here. So you can use versioning as well. You can, prepare your whole infrastructure in a way that's going to allow you to be mindful of those things. Like I mentioned, you can literally create a dashboard that if something goes wrong, you can press a button and say roll back to the previous version. Since those are like static deploy to buckets, and it's very easy to just go back. If you want to invalidate cache, for example, it's also super easy. So there is a lot of capabilities to it. And also adoption, right? So as I mentioned here, I'm using styled components. Might be the case that I want to adopt Tailwind or something that's shareable with JavaScript. That would be ideal because module federation still have ways to go with CSS and so on. I can do it, right? And I don't even need to tell my host application to adopt styled components, so it gets encapsulated nicely. If I want to try stuff, it's pretty nice. And I think especially for migrations and adopting new technology, right? Imagine that you have a big application written in jQuery, and now you want to adopt React or any kind of other framework. You can do this incrementally. You can have teams work in different pages, or you can have teams work in different set of features. This is kind of one example that I actually have in my real job, that adopting a design system library is super tough, especially when you share components between mobile and web, right? So there is such an overhead that we have to deal with it on just trying out. And one of the things that I didn't put here, but I think it's nice to share, that sometimes, since that we have to test designs, and we cannot test them within our machines, right? It's very tough. We got to a point, for example, that we had a very beautiful design. We think that was no questions about it, right? It was modern, it was new. We put to the page, we had a decrease in the user flow, and we have to roll back, right? But we spent 2 sprints just trying to push the feature there, and then we had to roll it back. We didn't have the understanding what exactly triggered that. With this, it could be just a on and off, like quickly trying things out and then getting more data as we go and then making a more data-driven decision. Yeah.
Super interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you for the talk. That sounds super interesting. And I'm wondering, have you tried this out in production? Have you actually been using micro-frontends?
I did for some set of projects, not at TaxFix where I work, but I did deploy some e-commerces, and this was specifically good because this was one of the biggest needs that they have, like testing like different flows, right? So now they have big teams. They have like different teams for exactly kind of the setup here. And yeah, if they play a lot with those small things, because for them, user acquisition is super important, right? So they really need to tweak those parameters like very well.
Could you contrast what are the benefits and drawbacks of micro-frontends compared to, for example, just normal feature flagging for these kinds of tests?
Yeah, so I think feature flags, they still require you to build everything up front and then push the code. And you have a safety trigger that's nice. But if you want to change, and really get the feedback right away. Let's say that it was something very small. You forgot, you did a typo or whatever that was not remote loaded. You didn't have a remote config, for example. Then you're gonna have to, go through all the pipelines again, get everyone on board, And especially with the way that we usually do things with libraries and so on, it might be the case that once you get there, someone else already bumped the library, they added more stuff. So I work with 300 other developers. It can get very intense in terms of like sometimes on the year, everyone is declaring taxes, for example. So as soon as you push a feature out, it needs to be out. If something goes wrong, you have a lot of other teams just pushing different features. This is a more flexible way. The drawback here for Module-Federation is, as I mentioned, I think the feature set is still too in the infancy as well. So I think we actually have a good opportunity to create new tools and to create new libraries to play nice with it. So for example, TypeScript support is something that I am very interested in, and I would try to create something also to help the community. So yeah.
Thank you.
Since you mentioned that's mostly a team scaling problem, I'm wondering how you handle actually component versioning, breaking changes, all those interesting topics.
It depends a lot on the team, right? Because different teams work in different ways. So usually it depends on the domain. If it's so we have a platform team, for example, that it's responsible for adopting all the changes that we do in the platform. So the design system, it's on their domain, and what they do, they try to be very mindful of the breaking changes, like creating good change logs and make sure that the migration is super easy. Here, the setup will be more in the adoption. This is more the problem that I'm trying to solve, because once the job is done, our job is to update everything, right? With this, yes, you create a dependency, but this doesn't need to be a tight dependency, because I can overwrite, I can use different versions, I can have different sets of UI and design libraries in the same team. So it can flow both ways, so it's a bit more flexible.
Yeah, but since it's at runtime, how do you make sure that if you introduce a breaking change because it's needed at some point, the other team just do whatever it takes to just under this breaking change and not just updating on production and crash everything?
Yeah, sure. So you can put some walls around it as well, as the same way that I tell my component that, hey, if there is any error being thrown by the UI, fall back to the previous version, you can create safety triggers. You still have versioning system here, so you can limit versions if you want to. If you don't, you can always get the latest one, you can do it as well. So it really depends on the need, right? If you want to be fast, if you want to have more control, but the good thing is you can decide.